What spirit, my guides told me, is there's only one emotion, and that's love. Everything else is a reaction. So that means guilt's a reaction, shame's a reaction, fear is a reaction. Reacting is not feeling, it's reacting. It means you've gone to your brain. Your brain is always going to go back to the past. Have you ever noticed when you start thinking, you go to either to the future or the past? You're not really in the now. And when you're not in the now, you're not really feeling. And then when you're not in the now, you're not really connecting to your spirit either.
Great title for a podcast, Blessings.
Thank you. Yes, I love it.
What a great meditation.
We are here to learn in the spirit of life.
I'm all about believe. You're about spreading blessings. That's great.
What about your blessings? What's the biggest blessing of life?
What a great question.
Because it's the Blessings podcast, I have to ask you, what is your biggest lesson in life?
My biggest lesson in life.
A whole lot of conversations with people about life and how those things manifest as blessings and lessons, and sometimes both.
It's my connection.
You're going to get schooled.
The journey is the journey.
What you and me are searching for are the blessings in this life.
Remember the reality of how sweet people are.
Spread blessings around the world.
You are the most remarkable energy. You make me pause, make me excited, make me think, and make me spontaneously come up with an answer. This is another one of those great moments in time in my life. Thank you for reaching out to ask if I would do the show.
Welcome back to Blessings, my friends. Today's guest is an international best-selling author and an expert in every aspect of mind, body, and spirit. She holds degrees and certifications in education, psychology, quantum healing, Reiki, yoga, meditation, and breathwork, among other modalities. She has helped thousands of people to heal and grow with her powerful tools, including her renowned cleanse method, which we're going to get into. Her latest book, now available for pre-order, entitled Just Ask Spirit, also the name of her podcast, showcases the profound relationship between mental health and spirituality and demonstrates how emotions and spirit are linked and they work together to offer infinite resources for connecting you to higher wisdom. And I'm all about that. And also healing, clarity, love, direction, purpose, all the good things, and how you can direct all of this to align your life with your desires. Here to teach us how to free our emotions, to activate our intuitions, and discover our purpose. That's a big job for an hour, but I think we can do it. Please welcome the enchanting Sherianna Boyle to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right. This stuff is really in my wheelhouse, Sherianna. So I'm very excited and I can't wait to dig into it. So let's start out with something big. I believe, and I know you believe, that we all have powers that we are not aware of. So what are some of the top abilities that we have that most people just do not even realize they're capable of?
Well, we have the ability to process our emotions without talking about them.
Okay. Let's talk about that, because there are things that we hold within us that we don't want to talk about. And a lot of us feel like we're going to have to carry these big emotions like shame or guilt around with us forever because we can't talk about them. So how do we break that myth?
And I'm not saying talking isn't an important part, and that for some people that might be the entryway into the world of emotions and spirit. But then eventually, as you become more confident in your ability to process your emotions, you start to rely less and less on the talking aspect. So it's like anything, you might start out with those training wheels where you need some coaching or some support, and that might mean talking it through, but then eventually those training wheels come off and you realize that I have the ability. I think we're just really tapping into the power of that. So in terms of carrying around certain emotions, that's where I think it's important to get to know emotions as similar to the energy of the way you might connect to spirit. So when we connect to spirit, we don't carry around anything.
So your things that you're feeling inside of you are all of the ways that you exist in connection with something bigger than yourself.
They are an avenue for connecting to an aspect of yourself, your higher self, also your spiritual team. And when we spend a lot of time analyzing or managing or reacting to them, we inherently block our connection to what we feel, as well as our connection to spirit. And then we suffer. So when we are not connected to that aspect of ourselves, I believe that's what makes us struggle and feel stuck.
So is it only, we're kind of getting deep here right away, but I have this question.
Well,
You're leading me to new questions. So I'm like, wow, okay. Is it only what we consider the quote lower emotions that block us?
No. Well, first of all, let me just give a little preview. So before writing Just Ask Spirit, I wrote the Emotional Detox book series.
Yes.
And so it took a lot of time and processing writing those 3 books. And then I wrote a book after that about manifesting with our emotions. And so then finally I get to Just Ask Spirit. But the same principles of emotional detox apply with this new book. That didn't change in that exploration process. I don't really categorize things because I find that can interfere with your processing. So in terms of lower and higher emotions, what spirit, my guides told me is there's only one emotion, and that's love. Everything else is a reaction. So that means guilt's a reaction, shame's a reaction, fear is a reaction. Reacting is not feeling, it's reacting. It means you've gone to your brain. Your brain is always going to go back to the past. Have you ever noticed when you start thinking, you go to either to the future or the past? You're not really in the now. And when you're not in the now, you're not really feeling. And then when you're not in the now, you're not really connecting to your spirit either. So both get blocked. So I know that some people talk about lower emotions, and that's okay. I mean, I'm not saying it's wrong or bad, but this has just been my experience in creating this whole mindset of emotional detox that sometimes, and that's because I went through a really big one myself, and I didn't find that served me to separate the emotions, because I sort of felt like I was going to be there for the rest of my life. If you tell me I have lower emotions, I'm going to keep finding more to clear. So in terms of the avenue of spirit, then it's just a whole different way of experiencing those emotions. You don't have to label them. So again, there's only one emotion, love. Everything is the reaction. And that's what they told me.
That resonates with me. Have you ever read the book, The Raw Contact?
No, what is it?
The Raw Contact.
It's funny because I've channeled that before. I think I wrote about it in Just Ask Spirit. You know, I wrote this book so long ago. It's on pre-order now, thank goodness. But I wrote it like over a year ago. So I did channel something about Ra, and it is in the book, and I was amazed. So yes.
You have to read that. And I want to hear we're going to talk after you read it.
Okay.
It's an interesting book, and basically the same concept, all that the love is the only emotion is the basic premise. The law of one. Oh, super interesting.
That's what the spiritual laws are based on.
I love the idea that the only emotion is that using that term emotion is love, and that everything else is a reaction. I'm going to reframe. I'm going to spend some time when I do my inner work today. I always do inner work, usually at night. And that's a really good thing to consider. So thanks for giving me that. All right, let's backtrack just a little bit. So I want to know, when did you realize that you could tap into this stuff, this higher way of thinking, or I guess using the word higher again, higher, lower, but this way of thinking that connected you to spirit?
That's a good question. And that's where Just Ask Spirit was. Writing that book really helped me a lot, because I hadn't realized how much I was tapping in. I just kind of felt like that was just normal. That's what people do. And I think when I was a teenager, and mainly because my parents told me, and my mom was a big inspiration for this book. She said, you know, I know you're doing all this emotional detox stuff. When the heck are you going to start writing? You are so spiritual, and you've been tapping in since you were a kid. When the heck are you going to write a spiritual book? Not that they're not all spiritual. They all have that spiritual element. And she kind of got on me. She was like, enough already. So I said, okay, I guess it's time. And she and my dad would say that, there were things that were just different in terms of, I talk about it in Just Ask Spirit, where when I think I was about 13 and I was on my way to babysit, or maybe I was on my way back. And there was a church and there was singing. And so I went into the church and I sat down in the last pew. And so I'm 13 years old, and I just listened to the music. It drew me in. And then I would return after that. And my parents knew. I would say, I'm going to go to the church. And they would kind of chuckle because I wasn't raised in that religion. It was Baptist church. And they would be like, okay, she's going to church. And I would sit and I would just go for the music. And then I would leave the sermon, the boring part, I would leave. And they were very welcoming and smiley. And I would sit in the back. And I know now, looking back, that's because when the choir, that's when the angels come in. And so I think I was just feeling the angels and taking in and connecting with spirit. So they tell me lots of little stories like that I did, that I didn't think anything of it, and think, like, don't all 13-year-olds go and hang out in the church? But no, not really. So
Oh my gosh.
things like that.
That's such a great story. And it really it gave me goosebumps in the moment, because that sound connection to frequencies like that, and it ties also to yoga, which I know that you teach and do frequently, and I do too. And that's the part of the yoga class that I love, the Om. And a lot of people aren't doing it anymore. And that's
really?
Yes, I know.
You're
It's
kidding
crazy.
me.
I've actually made comments in my yoga studios about wanting an Om at the end.
That makes me feel very sad. You're kidding me.
No.
I mean, I teach at a college. I teach psychology, and I've been teaching their yoga program, mindfulness program, for 16 years now. I've got those kids chanting like you wouldn't believe. They love it. They eat it up.
Yes.
It's part of the it's part of the tradition. It's part of, there's different lineages. And I feel it's my responsibility to teach them all different aspects of yoga, not just one lane. But here's which one do you feel? And they love the sound.
When you let yourself go in a moment of chanting a sound, like, or in a church, and even the amen is like the Om, when everyone says it together, that activates something in your heart. Like, you feel the vibration in your heart. If you could let yourself, you have to let go. You have to get into it. But, and I think that scares some people. I asked the question in one of my yoga studios, why don't you Om? Why are you not Oming? And they said, oh, someone complained. Someone complained about the Oming.
Me?
I was shocked. Yes, because I thought, well, I'm going to think about this through the lens of compassion. Like, it must have awakened something that startled that person. Maybe, that's my story I'm making up, but it's very powerful. I know you talk a lot about the connection to sound and frequency, and that is, I think, a way of tapping in to intuition and spirit. How do you use sound and frequency in your work?
Yeah. So absolutely. I wrote a book years ago called Mantras Made Easy, and that I was guided to write that book. That's all about sound. It's all about vibration. And I think I was supposed to write that book just so I could create the other books. Really, it was like a teaching tool. And that's when I discovered, well, one, how many thousands of years old mantras are, the power of them, how sacred they are, how blessed we are, to have them in our life, that they were kept and held by families and written on palm leaves. And, it's just sacred, ancient. And I learned to really respect sound and vibration that way. I knew, so there's something I called cleanse, and that's an acronym. Cleanse is the 7 steps of an emotional detox, and cleanse is the 7 steps of connecting to spirit. So I took the same 7 steps that are in the Emotional Detox book series, and the structure is the same, but the intention behind each step is slightly altered. And so what they do is they learn to go through those 7 steps, start at the C, end at the E, and that is where you'll learn to connect to spirit. And in that step, there's an E, which is stands for emit, and that means emit sound. So it's C, connect to light, L, look inward. That's our emotions without talking. And then E, emit sound. And then A, ask. And there's many, that's it's not just verbalizing a question. There's many variations of ask. N, nourish, receive. S, that's the surrender. That is allowing yourself. And then E is the I am. You land in ease, which is the oneness that you were just referring to. I am.
Okay. It's beautiful. Book is coming out in February.
Yeah.
If someone wants to get started right away, would you recommend going through the cleanse method with your emotional detox book first and then progressing to the Just Ask Spirit version of the cleanse?
I think it depends on the person and where they're at, what they're drawn to. I think that it's hard to say. I would say trust your gut on that. I think Just Ask Spirit is the version of cleanse that I work with the most now, because I really am developing a strong relationship with my guides, not just my guides, but my own higher self. I'm getting stronger. So emotional detox was really like, my life is falling apart. What do? I'm overwhelmed. Things felt out of control, and I needed sort of the basics, right? And that's where you're going to get, what is an emotional detox? What is it about? What are we detoxing exactly? And you'll get that clarity. And then Just Ask Spirit is for the person who is looking to develop their intuition and their purpose and get better at that. So you can start to trust yourself. You don't doubt as much. You trust your guidance. Life does get easier this way. And it's tricky, Mitzi, because we're so used to things being hard. And it's a different way of feeling. So emotional detox was sort of like the nuts and bolts of feeling. Just Ask Spirit now is really learning how to receive and go with the flow and let yourself be guided. And so it depends what interests you there. Are you ready for that? You know, for years I talk about it in the book. I don't really like to call myself like a psychic medium or anything like that. I've been channeling for years, and for my clients, they would ask me, and that's how I came up with the whole title. I'd say, well, let me just ask Spirit. Let me just ask Spirit. I can't tell you how many times I've said that. So my motto in Just Ask Spirit is feel first, then ask. Feel first, then ask. I do not ask until I'm in a state of feeling. I do not ask until my clients and I are in a state of feeling. Because how do I know if I'm not just reacting or digging up the past, or somehow, it's kind of like in psychology when they teach you how to be objective, when you're working with a client, really being mindful of your own biases and your own. That's why it's so important. Like yourself, you say, I do the work. That tells me you're a wonderful practitioner. You're doing it. Not everybody is. Some people are serving and they're not, and that's just their choice, and they working hard and all that. But how do you know where that information is coming from? And if it's reactive in nature, then I'm not sure if that's spirit. I'm going to be honest. And if you're feeling a little unclear about that, is this ego? Is this fear? Is this spirit? Then that's where Just Ask Spirit's going to help you.
So if it's really spirit, you'll know without having to ask whether it's ego or something else.
You will. And I'm changing, Mitzi, like in ways that I didn't expect to change. And it's very odd. I'm really allowing it to happen. But things that I was formerly attached to, I'm not really attached to anymore. There's a lot of humility that starts to set in. And you stop living in this world where there's hierarchies and pedestals and you start learning to live in harmony and mutual respect. And it's weird because I bump up against people still in that mindset.
Mhm.
And I'm surprised at myself sometimes. I'm like, wow, this just feels completely different. You stop living in competition, comparing yourself. And so you change as you ask spirit and as you receive the energy of spirit, the healing, because that's something that spirit gives us is when we're connected, is we receive that healing, that vibration, and you become more devoted. So it's just like the archangels, they're devoted to delivering messages from source, from God, what you call source. And that's the priority there is their service. They're not here to serve ego. So there's a whole lot of people saying, please give me, the shiny this and the shiny that. And I get that. But guess what? Archangels are not signed up for that. They're not here to inflate your ego.
What are they here for?
Well, they're here to serve source or God or your creator. And so when you tune into them, you start to change and you start to learn, what am I really here for? What is my purpose? And you start to step into that. It's gradual.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not like a lightning bolt thing that just comes to you and suddenly you're
No, and you start to realize that feeling is a big part of purpose. You start to feel purpose rather than what is my purpose. You become purpose. So it's a feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand that because I embody it and I'm not there. I wouldn't say, I don't know if you ever get quote there all the way. I don't know. But I do think there are so many people who just aren't able to surrender enough to feel. So I love that that's part of your cleanse process. I can't wait to get my hands on this book.
Yeah. And it's at the end.
Yeah.
It's the S. That was spirit, by the way. Spirit gave me the cleanse. I asked because I had heard a very, very strong voice. It wasn't my voice. It was a male voice and it was loud and unmistakably spirit. And that it was a direction. And it wasn't even just the voice, it was the response that I had to it that I couldn't even have gone to my brain even for a second. And then I sat down and I said, okay, tell me more. And that's when then I would have conversations. And I had the privilege of interviewing Neil Donald Walsh. He wrote Conversations with God.
Oh, yes.
And that was one of an honor in my life. That's one of my favorite authors. And that's what I felt like I was doing. I felt like we were having a conversation.
Yeah.
And I would just write down and I would play and I would go back in and I would just keep asking. Nobody knew I was doing it. I didn't tell anybody.
Right.
Until it was done. And then it was like it was on paper. So that's where cleanse came from.
That's beautiful.
How would you like to get the best text of your life? This is your sign that it's time to add something powerful to your morning routine that sets you up for success and reminds you that you are worthy and makes you unstoppable. It's a motivational text message from me, a real human. I am Mitzi Campbell, a mindset specialist, and I know that it is possible for you to live the life of your dreams. My morning motivational text messages help you up-level your mindset, your happiness, and your success. Sign up for a 2-week free trial at yourpositivemoment.com and change your life today. Join the movement so we can all thrive together. yourpositivemoment.com.
I love that you have I'm going to call it courage to allow that to take place in your experience? Because a lot of people would hear a voice and they would shut it out. They would say, oh, something's wrong with me. I must be crazy. And they would shut it out. But I think there's something a lot deeper going on when that happens in your life, and you're kind of being chosen because you're a person who's got that capability to hear it.
Well, I heard it at a time where I was in crisis. And when you're in true trauma response, everything feels frozen. And there's some value to that because you can't keep going. And so the voice was very clear for me because my life felt frozen, not stuck, frozen. And that, again, that's a trauma in the body. But I did ask more. I knew, and it was my faith that got me through that time and ended up being changing my life, just taking a moment to sit and listen like that and receive and be curious. I think that's one of the ways when you're connected to your higher self or something higher, you get curious. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter if somebody else has already looked into something. Sometimes we say, oh, well, so, I want to write about this, but someone else, so-and-so already wrote about it. It's like, well, if you're curious, write about it because you might discover something different. So that curiosity, I think, is more so than courage. I think I was just curious.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it okay to ask you a couple of questions about this time of crisis?
Yeah. I mean, I've really moved on from it. It's all in my emotional detox. And
that's what I'm curious about. So that book, Emotional Detox, was your way of moving through a crisis.
Well, I had already planned on writing Emotional Detox. So that wasn't really set up in that way. It just happened to happen while I was writing it
at the same time, but there's no coincidences, right?
Exactly. So that it wasn't like, oh, I'm in a tough spot, let me write a book about it. It was, I'm really curious about emotions. There's that curiosity piece. Mm-hmm. What happens when we process them? What happens when we don't? What does that look like? I just started asking questions, asking. There's that asking. Who am I asking? I'm just talking to my higher self.
And so is that what spirit is? Is spirit your higher self? What is spirit?
Spirit is, as I define it, is consciousness, is awareness. And then soul is your light. So we have spirit, consciousness, awareness. It's infinite. And it connects us to our family, a family of oneness. Mm-hmm. Where we're all one, to light. We use them interchangeably a lot. But for me, it's anytime my level of consciousness increases. So they talk about raising your vibration, right? Yeah. And when we're in that state of high vibration and we're wisdom that comes through that nobody taught us, or information or guidance. I'll never forget one time I was doing my cleanse, the Just Us Spirit version. And I was asking for support around one of my kids. I was like, help me with this, help me with that. All of a sudden, right through, just like that voice, they told me what was going on. And so I can't talk about it, but it's kind of funny. It was nothing horrible or anything like that. But so later on, I went and I was talking to, one of my daughters, and I said, I'm like, you know what Spirit said today? The look on her face was like, how the hell did you figure that out? It was like, what? I think she just was, I think that's when she knew, okay, whatever she's doing works, because there was just no way, I could have figured that out. I was like, Spirit said this today. Right away, just by the look on her face, I could tell she was like, oh my gosh.
Well, your kids must be like, okay, we better be on our toes here because
Thank God they're good. They're
mom
good
and
kids.
spirit are watching us.
Yeah, they're good kids. They're good kids. So I don't have to worry. But I maybe, sometimes spirit just shows us these things just to help us say, you know what, this is spirit. I am talking to you. You are accurate. Sometimes they just give us that experience for those reasons.
Yeah. So what's the difference between spirit and source or God?
Well, again, the source is soul. It's your light. Spirit is consciousness, awareness, infinite. I think we're all one. I mean, if you look at, when I wrote Energy in Action, that's all about the spiritual laws. And when you look at the laws, they come from oneness. And so my guides, that book was another one, Guided. They told me, sorry, I'm jumping all over the place, but they're all so connected.
Yeah, there's so much. I'm going to get your whole library.
Well, they're when I wrote Energy in Action, because I sat down and I kept wanting to write about the laws. And I said, my brain, I said, everybody's writing about the laws. Everybody's talking about the laws. I can't write about that. Like enough. It's already been discussed. Well, spirits kept knocking at my door. You're going to write about the laws. Okay. So same thing. I sit down, I start my cleanse, talk to me. And that's when they taught me how we manifest with light. And they taught me that the spiritual laws all go with light sources. So when the light emanates from source energy, you see this all over the Bible, the light, right? Mm-hmm. And we're bringing in the light on the planet, and all of they call it the rays of light, come from God, come from source, and they carry high vibrational source-like frequencies. So frequencies of unconditional love, frequencies of forgiveness, frequencies of true power. And so when you connect to light and you're connecting to source, it's almost like you're choosing to vibrationally allow yourself to receive these godlike qualities that exist. In that book, I talk about, so great, you want to let's say we're working with the law of attraction and energy in action. I talk about, well, that's the yellow ray of light. You're going to be working with a yellow ray of light, because yellow ray of light is all about inner strength. You need that inner strength to work with that law of attraction. And it's about growth, and it's about expansion, not contraction. So that's the way they taught me to manifest. So when you say source, like immediately I think of light. I think of the rays of light, which I talk about in Just Ask Spirit too. But now I'm starting to show people in Just Ask Spirit that the light is overseen by the ascended masters, ascended beings of light, and the archangels. So when you connect with them, they're the keepers of the light. So when you say, well, what is God? I mean, it's source. It's all related to light. And the more light we have, the easier things become, because nothing evil or bad or negative can survive, and they just transform in the light. So when we manifest, it's really about bringing the light on the planet and within ourselves, and touching our light body. We're more than just a physical body. We have layers to us, and some of those layers go into other lifetimes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we could go on forever here, but it's
so much. I love it.
It's a big question, but I guess that's the best way I can respond is light.
Mm-hmm. Do you think we're like candles? Like the more light we have, the more we can share and give?
Yeah, I think the more that we can transform and we can go beyond healing, because we will get to a place where we're not focusing on healing ourselves anymore. It's very consuming.
Yes.
And that will happen. I don't know if it'll happen in my lifetime, but we will get to a place where we just are the light. And that's that, when they say heaven and earth, or, the fifth dimensional energies, that's what we're aiming for. So there's no more separation. And that's with emotions too. If you're not processing your emotions, then you're functioning off separation. And that's where, when we're connected to spirit, we're one. When we're connected, when we're truly processing our emotions, we're in a state of oneness.
At that stage, will we have physical bodies?
Oh gosh, I'm not sure. I mean,
Have you ever asked that question?
I'd have to ask spirit about that. I could ask, but I haven't asked that question. I think, we're here to evolve and to grow. And fear is something that you just have to be really, like, you have your practices and I have my practices, but we're really here to transform and transmute that fear, because it will hold us back. Everybody has free will here. If you want to stay in a physical body, that's up to you. If you want to be in pain, that's your free will. If you want to suffer, or if you want to transcend.
Are there people who don't realize they have the choice to not suffer?
Yeah, all the time.
Is it our job to help them see that they don't have to suffer, or is that something they have to go through to learn their transformation on their own?
I think the best thing is to be it and to work on yourself as much as you can, so that you can be that people can feel it. So you're not just lip service. I don't know about you, but I've definitely been with teachers where I could felt like it was more lip service, like preaching.
Right. They're exactly. They're like, you should do this.
Yeah.
Because I say so.
Exactly. Right. It felt a little bit. And then I've been around others and I just feel something.
Because you want to be like that. You want to be the light that they are. Yeah.
And again, that's where humility comes in, and not having this, again, hierarchy of, I think that will slowly dissipate. I think it's starting to dissipate now.
I believe that too. I think we're starting to see the split where there are clearly people living in at least two different realities. I think two that are very clear, but probably more. But I see that happening in my life.
Like, yeah. I mean, even like celebrities and things like that, you feel like now that other people have more of a voice, like podcasters like yourself, anybody can be on the radio, anybody can have a podcast, anybody can be on YouTube. And there's positives to that, because before it felt like, oh, you have to be famous and you have to have a lot behind you in certain degrees. And now that's the playing field is becoming more level.
Yes.
And that maybe perhaps is a more positive thing. I mean, certainly some people are misusing it in certain ways, but I think that it is changing a bit.
Because we can see what voices are really there. We can see what truth is really there, not just what was shown to us on television or, in our programming. Basically, you can have access to a larger reality because of that. So I want to ask you a question that you alluded to something earlier that I'm really curious about. You have a background in traditional psychology and lots of, quote, practical fields. And so you said your mom was encouraging you to talk more about spirituality. And I think that's really interesting, because I also have a master's in psychology and I have degrees in education. And I find myself holding back from talking about the woo-woo spiritual stuff. And I don't really mean woo. I'm using that in my air quotes, spiritual stuff. But I'm extremely tapped in to intuition. I've had experiences that I would call, I don't know, I mean, psychic isn't the right word, but very connected. And I don't really talk about that stuff a lot. And I feel like I want to talk about it more, but I don't. So how can you help people who want to be more open about their spirituality, that have traditional ties to traditional, science or social science fields, that want to branch out?
Yeah, I think that happens in a lot of areas. I mean, I think that's why it's so important to process your emotions around that. So yours might look like, letting people or having people see the side of me makes me feel, or the thought of coming out, talking more about
coming
it.
out.
Yeah.
Coming out of the spiritual closet.
That makes me feel. And then just take a breath, Mitzi. So I'll say that out loud. I'll sort of reflect that. So you're saying it's more talking about it or coming out? Which one kind of gives you a ping, like a trigger?
More of a ping. I would say both, but probably talking about it.
Some of it is our training in psychology.
Mm-hmm.
I went through that too. I went through that. There's a strong ethical, which is a good thing for Mitzi, you and I. When you get a degree in psychology, you're trained in ethics.
Mm-hmm.
And there are many therapists out there that walk that fine line. They're like, I'm more spiritual, but I'm charging insurance. And how do I do that? And so I agree. There's so many that when do you make that leap? And I've known some therapists who have completely said, well, I'm not going to take insurance anymore. I have to be me. I just have to, I'm more of a spiritual coach, and I have to let go, and I have to trust that this is my path. And that's something, I think we all face at some point where but I trained so hard in this, and now I'm becoming this, and that's important. You're evolving. But if you said, so which one gives you the ping, the coming out or the talking about it?
Originally I just said the talking, but now I'm kind of thinking it's more the coming out as you're talking.
And coming out meaning sharing some of your experience. Like, what does that mean for you?
I think that means more sharing my inner knowing, things I've come to believe.
So channeling.
Time.
Channeling.
I would say I never called it that, but yeah,
it's channeling.
I guess
so
that's what that is.
What I'm hearing you say is
okay.
sharing your channelings,
truths that I receive from somewhere outside of me, I guess.
Yes,
or inside of me, deep inside.
So okay. and I think sometimes people fear they're going to look like they're crazy or something.
Exactly. Oh yeah.
It's interesting. I totally understand what you're saying, because I share channeling on my social media, and my daughter was like, Mom, what are you doing? You're supposed to be professional. And it was a channeling about, I'm wearing this cross on my neck, and it was basically how, I saw it in a dream. That's another way that we channel. And I kept seeing it. It was like 3 dreams in, gold cross, and I could see what it looked like. Finally, I said to my husband, I'm supposed to be wearing a cross. I keep seeing it in my dream. I just know they want me to have a cross on. And, I think that you just have to slowly start talking about it. Like, even with my husband, that took time for him not to think I was I'm sure he still thinks I'm nutty, but I'm okay with that. But you just start slow and you share, I was connecting with spirit today, and here's what I received. And it's like anything, you're like, okay, I'm out. You can't go back in now.
Right. It's a toothpaste.
It's like the baby,
kind of thing. Yeah.
The baby is born and you can't put it back. Right.
Right.
So once you get through that moment of like, oh, that is strange.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And again, the more I connect to spirit, the more what other people think just don't matter as much. What matters is really listening to the divine guidance. I mean, we are here, and spirit does work through people.
Yeah.
And it would be a disservice for you to not share some of that. You might slowly feel yourself slipping away, because they need us. They need our help here to help other people.
I love that. And I am going to allow that in my life now moving forward, especially for this year. In fact, that may be one of the reasons why we were meant to connect.
Well, that is where Just Ask Spirit is different than all the rest. I actually provide space for your channelings. So you'll move through the system and then there will be a pause and you'll see the guidance there of asking and then receiving. And so there's space to receive as well as guidance of what that looks like.
Yeah.
And then what to do with that information.
Yeah.
Because that's another part of it. Okay, I received it. Now what?
Yeah. What do you do with it? I know. And I've been doing that in my journals for years. And I always say when I'm gone and my kids find my journals, they're going to think I was absolutely batshit crazy. They're going to be like, this is what was going on in her brain. No wonder. But yeah, it's crazy. I want to ask you a little bit about the colors associated with I guess you said the laws or the
rays of light. Yes.
Because I think when people go inside meditation or whatever, that quiet space that they go into, oftentimes they see colors. Now, for me, it's indigo. It's always indigo. And my partner sees blue and he calls it the blue pearl.
Oh,
and it's
beautiful.
really, I know it's really interesting. And I know for other people, they've told me that they see colors. So what is that all about?
Yeah. So again, you're probably connecting to the rays of light. Sometimes you're connecting to your chakras. I mean, you have to use your intuition you can ask spirit about that. What does this mean when I connect, when I see this? Can you tell me more? Am I connecting with an archangel? Am I connecting with a master? So I would ask more questions. Again, that curiosity piece. I love that he calls it blue pearl. Yeah. It reminds me of blue pearl. I mean, that's a frequency he's connecting to.
And he gets so excited. He'll be like, oh, I got the blue pearl.
Yeah. So I would, if I were him, I would be working with that blue pearl. That's a little magic there. Yeah. And that blue pearl frequency, start calling it a frequency and start, say thank you to your guides. Thank you for this. Can you share more about how to work with the blue pearl? And for you, and you have the indigo, which we know is the third eye, more of that third eye chakra or the upper chakra areas. But again, it could also be the archangels. I'd have to ask spirit, or you'd have to ask spirit. But again, just open up the doorway. It doesn't have to.
That. Asking, give me more. Can you give me more? Show me more.
Absolutely.
I love that. That's the best question.
That's what I did with cleanse. I heard, that the thing I heard with the voice, it wasn't in these exact words. It was so many years ago now when I heard that voice. The voice said, stop talking. Stop talking. And that's led to, we're talking too much about our emotions.
We should be feeling them.
Well, it's good to talk. Like I know have a lot of people that like to talk, but it's such a small part of it. So
it's so weird.
I always say feel first, then talk about it. That's my motto.
Yeah. Because
usually if you feel first, you're not going to need to talk about it because you've transformed it. If I feel and I still feel like there's something to talk about, then that's something to pay attention to. That's something to address.
As you're talking about this, I just got this weird sensation in my body of quietness and almost like a cooling in my legs. And every sound in my house just went quiet. I'm not kidding you. Like everything, like the heating, everything just kind of went off and got quiet when you said that. Not joking. And I felt this sensation of quiet.
Well,
crazy.
We're chat. Yeah.
So crazy. I love that. I want to ask you.
Hello.
Welcome. I know.
Welcome
exactly.
to the conversation.
Thank you for coming here and letting us know you're here. I love that.
Yay. Yes.
I love that. I know. It's so exciting. I can't wait to, I don't know. When things like that happen, it's like, notice it, see it, hear it, feel it.
Exactly. Acknowledge it. Thank you for coming because they remember they need your permission. They love us so much.
Yeah. And that's when you said the question, show me more, they need you to say I acknowledge that you're showing me this instead of saying, what's this all about? Ask, show me more.
Exactly.
Say that you're okay with it. Say that you're not afraid of it.
It's what changed my life.
Oh,
it's what changed my life when I heard the voice And I'll divulge this much. I was in therapy when I heard the voice. That's how I knew the connection.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in therapy and the therapist got distracted and she had to go check her phone. And she had just asked me a question. So I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to answer the question? Right. That's what happens when somebody asks you, then they leave. I'm like, okay, what am I going to answer? And the spirit literally said, stop talking.
Wow.
And I was like, she came back and I couldn't even speak. She's like doing her thing. But here was the shift. As I was leaving, I said out loud, that's the last time I'm going to therapy. That's the last session.
Mm.
Now, whatever made me do that, because that's not appropriate. It's not why I don't encourage that with anybody. You usually have a last session and you let the person know, and it's like a mutually respectful thing. But whatever it was in that moment, that feeling, that I just knew I can't talk about it anymore. Something is trying to come through. And I went home, and it's like I went into the next phase of it all.
Yep. You were moving into a new phase
Yeah.
with it. That is so cool. Oh my gosh. I love all this stuff.
Well, it speaks to what you just said. Don't let it stop there. We're all getting messages.
Yes.
And we're like going to our friends and what do you think this dream means? And what is right? And it's like, no, drop in more, ask for more, get deeper. It's all there.
It's all there. Oh my God. So amazing. So let me ask you my final two questions, it's really one question in two parts, is what do you think are the greatest lessons and blessings of life, of your life, of life in general? Lessons and blessings to end us out.
Lessons and blessings. That's a great question. I think just for me, it's being with God, what I call God and source, and really living and breathing and aligning and trusting source. And the lessons come with the earth stuff, no matter what I'm doing, whether I'm being a parent or I'm being a coach or writing or teaching. Okay, how can I apply this oneness with God, the source, and not abandon that and then go about my life and do all these other things and respond how I respond. So I think those are lessons that just keep going. I don't really think that there's an end. They're infinite.
Right. I agree. Oh my gosh. Wow. I feel like I could talk to you forever. Love this kind of conversation.
We got a whole crew here.
I hope everyone has enjoyed this. This has gotten deep. And I've just, wow, I have so much to think about. I hope you listening at home also have found lots of nuggets as fuel for you to continue to learn. And I know that you're going to want to get Sherianna's new book as soon as it comes out. Just Ask Spirit. We'll have all the information for you in the show notes. Is there anywhere else that people can connect with you, Sherianna?
My website, sheriannaboyle.com. That's where all the books are. And I have a free Just Ask Spirit gift there. If they're interested in grabbing, it's a meditation. They can grab it there.
Okay. That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for everything that you shared. And thank you for doing the work that you're doing in the world.
Yeah. And thanks for your coming out.
I'm going to come out.
I got to witness your coming out. She's out. No going back in. The baby's out.
Go back in. I love it. I love you, Sherianna. Thank you.
Hey, everybody still listening. Will you go give a 5-star review to this podcast? Mitzi puts in so much effort and so much love into this. She's brilliant. She deserves it. So I am going to go right now. By the way, by the time you hear this and you go give your 5-star review, you should be able to go find my 5-star review of this podcast. But I just want to thank you for what you're doing.